It used to be Pine Gap, but like actually that's kind of on theme with this.
Pine Gap,
American interference in Australia.
Yeah. But what's the
Pine Gap is like a Gape is because it's for women. It used to be Pine Gap, but then Jake changed it to Pine Gape. It's not.
Nice.
It's not even Jake's podcast.
Okay.
But they call the shots for some reason. I'm kind of like that. I just let myself be pushed around. Today we're talking about Grand Days by the illustrious Frank Moorehouse. With me, talking on the pod with me today are Sally and Cam, who are the editors-in-chief. I just wanted to pepper that in for effect. At the Paris End, which is a very successful substack in Naarm. I don't know. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, well, I feel like the Paris End is like a more Houseian endeavour, you know?
So true.
Yeah.
I've
always thought of it that way.
It's committees.
It's bureaucracy.
Admin. It's like geopolitical intrigue and amateurism combined.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Expat reports.
Yeah.
Alcoholism. Being on the terrace as a life stance.
Erotic
novels.
It could be more erotic.
Yeah.
We
should
got grand plan.
Pivot to like, what are they called? Like blue novels?
What's a blue novel?
Like Mills and Boons, kind of.
Like blue humor, like sexy.
Yeah. Our main like ambitious project, which you haven't started and we may never start, is that we want to do a serialized erotic murder mystery.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's what me and Sally want to work on in the
Would you like co-write it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our aim.
I think a collaborative like writing
Oscar's
experience could be
Oscar's having a baby, so he was like, you guys can do that. You can do that in your own time.
I've got 2 children.
He's like, that's a great idea, guys.
Yeah, you should do that.
Don't ask what daddy does.
Yeah, murder, she wrote. No, we want to do, this is our idea. You're from Sydney, so you can give us feedback. The idea is like murder on the Orient Express, but it's murder on the train from Melbourne to Sydney with like various characters that are from that, nether space.
No, honestly, like that train is so haunted.
I've never gotten it.
We have to get it for research.
Oh, do you know what would be so good? If we got it and we had to write the whole thing on the train.
That would actually be a lot of fun.
How long is the trip?
It's like 12 hours,
Yeah,
and it's honestly like sometimes cheaper to just fly.
Yeah.
So it's like the people taking the train are either tourists or like freaky psychos.
Yeah, totally.
That's really funny.
Which is a great mix of people.
Wait, when have you gotten it?
When I was... This is like when I first came to Melbourne and I didn't realise that the flights were literally the same price. And I'd been dating this chick over the internet and we had planned to rendezvous at the Marxism conference.
So cute. That's already the best meet cute for our Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
We were communists.
Right.
Were.
Yeah, why did you say that?
And what were you disappointed in first? Communism or your
the
girlfriend?
They kind of let me down at the same time.
Do you think the letdown was intermingled?
Honestly, I'm the kind of person to like pick up and put down like political associations based on like who I'm fucking. So almost definitely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's very Moorhouse too, of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything's Moorhouse. And also the first scene of Grand Days is that scene where Edith, the main character, meets Ambrose on the train. And that chance encounter is what structures her whole experience of Geneva.
Okay, I missed that. Like,
what do you mean? That's
we
like
need
the
to
whole
go
first
back.
chapter.
No. Like, I missed.
And literally the blurb is like, Edith meets Ambrose on a train to Geneva.
It's like the synopsis. No, like I miss the days
of catching trains.
of like dining on a train.
Yeah, I've dined on trains before.
I just feel like we
but not
don't
anything like that.
do that
But
anymore.
out of like a plastic box that's been like microwaved and started like melting it on itself kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're having like a
Yeah.
4x gold, and it's just
and a pie in like
kind
a
of
plastic bag.
disgusting.
The last time,
It's not
the
very
last time I was
continental.
on a train with a dining cart was in Vietnam with Boishi, and he had COVID, but we didn't know it yet, and we were like sitting up with each other, and he was like, his eye was like hell swollen, and he was like dripping with sweat.
Oh
I was like,
my
I feel
God.
really sick.
Oh god.
It was not very Moorhouse, but yeah.
True.
I've never had like in that they say like you should always get the like 7-course meal. I've never been offered that.
Like 7 courses. I'm like,
Not
what are
even
the
off a train.
portion sizes?
Yeah.
I don't know. But this is a very continental book. Have you both sort of like spent an extended amount of time overseas? You have, I know. You were in
I have.
London doing a
Art history.
Masters
Degree.
in the Northern Renaissance.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah,
The Flemish Renaissance. Beautiful.
Yeah, Northern Flemish. You spent time travelling and
Yeah, I haven't like really lived overseas. I've been to places in Europe a couple of times, and to some other countries too. But
you know what it's like overseas.
Yeah.
I know I've
Over
been
there.
on like trains that make you reflect on our own poor like public transport system in Australia.
I love that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just love experiencing like all of the like autistic minutiae of being in like a new place.
really.
Like, I don't know, signs and shapes, colours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. It's interesting because like when you read Moorhouse's biography, like I don't know if you want to introduce who he was, but like I was interested that he didn't even go overseas until he was like 30 or something.
He actually like
Yeah.
wrote an essay against people going overseas.
Yeah.
Like he was referencing this George Orwell, who, by the way, huge fascist. No, I'm
What?
only joking. No, like there's this like common joke that like communists think that Orwell was a fascist just because he didn't agree with like some detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which-
fascist has always been thrown around quite loosely.
Yeah. No, I like throwing fascists around loosely, I think. As
I
long as
would-
you're not like ruining people's careers.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun to say, this is fascist, but like in a value-neutral way.
I love to say like design fascist, for instance. Like
Oh.
it's a very useful thing to say in this city as well.
I like to say
Um,
anti-fascist fascist.
Yeah.
It's also very
Wow.
useful in the city. Nah.
So true.
Kidding.
The fascists at Antifa.
Antifa.
Yeah.
The
But
super soldiers down at the soul.
yeah, when he went, but I think he was like his position against people going overseas was that he didn't like to have like you were exceptional. It was like a cultural cringe argument where he's like, I don't want people to
Right.
worship overseas because like we have our own culture here and like
Totally.
blah 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 blah. But then I think he became like a Europhile.
Mm.
That's what I like about him is like this because I feel
Is
like
that he's like
well he's like
mercurial and
he's like a
changing.
nationalist, but also he's like a cosmopolitan.
Exactly, which
Yeah.
is like the only way that you can be a nationalist.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, it's like if you don't...
he's like a cool nationalist, not like one of like the bad ones.
Yeah, exactly. Not like a fascist.
No, he's like an anti-fan nationalist. Well, that's what I was saying the other day. Like, I can't remember if it's at the start of this book or at the one of his books. He's like has this really long dedication where he like thanks the Australian people for funding his novel
think it
writing
might
because
be
he
this
gets
novel.
like a Creative
like-
Australia grant,
Yeah.
or, like an Oscar
Donald
grant.
Ball.
Yeah, this
Yes.
it's so cute. I thank the Australian people who, through the Creative Fellowship Program and other agencies, made this book possible.
really cute.
It's like a really nice. This is like the
An
RSL.
Australian treasure, Paul Keating, just
Okay.
name dropping all of his like friends.
Yeah, that. But like, we don't really care about the King stuff. But it's like this idea of like civic duty of producing a novel that's
yeah.
going to reflect like the Australian experience. It's
I love
very
that.
archaic and cute.
It's very sweet. Like you don't actually
Yeah.
think of the people behind the tax dollars that go into your like Australia Council grants.
Exactly.
No, yeah, it's like you should be serving the public, and a novel is a public good.
Yeah, and that is-
you producing it is a public good.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had this like huge thing about like how labor unions were like, you know, like interested in the labor side of things, which is like, no, but like they weren't really. They were about the bread and not the roses. He was
Right.
like,
He's all about the roses.
he's all about the roses, and he's like,
Yeah.
we should link and build here instead of like doing the brain drain thing. and,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
which I totally agree with, but I'm like I'm about like draining the brain, like from overseas. I'm about drain gang
Yeah.
overseas.
What do you mean? Like, people here should drain.
Like, people here should, first of all, like, steal people from overseas, but, like, also go overseas, learn a skill, and then come back.
Yeah, I support
Yeah.
that message.
Better off for it.
That's literally what you just did, basically.
It is literally
Yeah.
what you did.
It's
Honestly,
true.
so it's kind of, like, huge to, like, come back to Australia.
You're so brave.
Right, yeah.
Literally.
It was such a hard choice. No, I came
God's
crawling
bravest
back. I was like,
soldier.
take me back. No.
Yeah.
Literally.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I
Well,
got
remember when we were like, I met Aubrey because we were hanging out in London. But like, I don't know, you were walking around with me. It's like, it's cool, but it's not particularly hospitable.
I thought that London was really nice.
Really.
It's not hospitable in terms of, like, yeah, there's, like, more crime and there's, like, trash everywhere. But, like, I don't know, I felt like it was too perfect. Like, it was just the right level. Like, it's the same with Melbourne. If I moved to Melbourne, like, I just wouldn't have the urge to make anything because, like, I'm having too much fun.
Interesting. Like, it felt easy, or Melbourne feels easy, or...
Like, it just felt like it was everything that I wanted.
Right.
Which
You
is
had
not
no
what I
desire
want.
left. You had no,
Exactly.
like,
No, I'm a
pushing
Lacanian.
forward. Yeah.
I'm all about
Yeah.
denying the self.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I like that in the book that the character moves to Geneva, which is like such a particular European city that's not like a colonial metropole like
Totally.
London. It's just like a very European city that's like a nondescript city. And so she's like, she likes the like weight of European tradition, but then she feels like,
She's freed from her, like, national association.
yeah, I
And
think
she
so.
deliberately tries to become
She's
a
like
cosmopolitan.
an
right?
internationalist.
She does,
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like reflecting, when she's at the cafe early on in Grand Days, she's like reflecting on what a cosmopolitan would drink and how they would drink it. And
I love the, like, manners involved, like, the
Yeah.
very sort of, like, you can't do that these days because the kids
All
have no
about
manners.
manners, yeah.
It's all about,
And
like,
about tradition and like propriety and like
exactly.
also like I feel like I always like, this is why I respect your commitment to dressing well, which I like love in other people but don't really have myself. I wouldn't say I dress badly, but I don't have the same like, I don't put the same effort into like dressing every day. Like Babs does it as well. And it's like, I love when people, like in this book she's always talking about like the right thing to wear and like dressing in a particular way where it's like cosplay but for like the scene or something, or like the setting that you're in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, everyone is kind of an actor.
Yeah, but that's why she has her rules for life.
Am I,
She like
like,
follows her
noted
rules.
too?
And, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is just like rules for life.
Rules
This is,
for
like,
life,
kind of,
It's like the 12 rules for life,
Yeah.
but the rules are like
Literally.
wear like a like really tight skirt and like
Is that
drink
the Jordan
whiskey fizz
Peterson?
or whatever.
Is that the Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
like, guide to...
Yeah,
Yeah.
the guide to living well.
This
Do
is
you
like-
guys agree with her rules for life?
I can't really remember them. Like, okay, so we've got
So she
conversational
had
rules.
the ways of going.
Yeah.
Including, like...
They're all like really arcane, like
Mm.
talk a little but not too much when it feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
And it's like... yeah, no shit. But then, like, she kind of... I don't know, like, I thought that he was going to refer more to the rules later on in the book. Like, I thought he was setting up a kind of, like, structure.
It's kind of relief that he's not, because I feel like that would constrain the book.
Totally.
Well, I think there's more, it's like an interesting time period because it's like, what, late 1920s and it's like, you know, the waning of like social propriety, but there's still like expectations of like how a young lady should behave, but then she's like freed from the constraints of her family in her like small country town, but then she's like, part of the conflict of the book is whether or not she should like leave behind her Australian social conservatism and go full Weimar, but then she encounters like new kinds of social rules in Geneva.
Yeah.
Right,
Do you know what I mean?
totally,
Yeah, totally.
Like, the restraints are still there, they're just different.
They're
Like,
different.
she...
And it's all about diplomacy all of a sudden. Like, her rules are suddenly about how she navigates herself at the League of Nations and how she, like, presents herself as an envoy for the League, which she's obsessed with. Like,
Yeah,
representing
exactly.
the League. And because the League is, like, an international project, she has to become an internationalist.
Which is, like,
Yeah.
tied into the kind of, like, the sexual diplomacy that she, literally does. Is this book porn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten off reading other books more than this,
I did.
sexually.
It's not that, like, lurid. It's very... I love how, like, yeah, it's very, like, coquettish and...
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, as you said, like, porn in the 70s.
Yeah, but I feel like there's
Like all of the porn stars have like thick bush.
yeah,
Like
She definitely has a bush.
she definitely has a bush.
But there's a lot of like things of her doing her creams, etc.
Her cream.
Yeah, she's always putting creams on.
Yeah,
That is so
lipstick.
true.
I think it's like very sexual. Like there's lots of scenes that have explicit sex, and I guess some of it is borderline pornographic. But I feel like, it becomes pornographic because it's trying to be like playful and erotic, but then sometimes it's like so erotic that it's just like porn.
Well,
I
I feel
know.
like, yeah, like we were saying
But I don't have a
before,
problem with that.
It's so erotic that it becomes fetishistic because it's
Yeah.
all over the edge again. I think it's like the thing with the rules and the detail in this book or something. Like there is a fetishization of like process, whether it's like the League of Nations or how you do your makeup.
The fetishization of process.
Yeah, or like how you hook up with someone. Like when she hooks up with Ambrose for the first time, she like takes off her face creams but reapplies lipstick. And she's like, she goes in her she dresses in her nightgown before they get into bed, and for a while they like cuddle and like touch each other while they're both clothed, and she feels like that's necessary for like the growing intimacy, and then they like unclothe and they're like, you know, overtaken by passion.
Totally.
But there's like a real like
little like rituals and like the behaviors that like are codified into society kind of like make things hornier rather than like being a prohibition.
Yeah.
Which I feel like Frank has a huge thing against.
Yeah, but also I really like how, like, okay, for the character Ambrose, who is a cross-dresser, like, who, I don't know, I guess is trans, but, like, wouldn't have identified as that. It's just, like, sexually transgressive. Like, I feel like it has a really...
AGP.
No, I feel like it has really, like, sexy and nice scenes where it doesn't... Like, it really stages her, like, confusion and her, like, becoming more accustomed to this like transgressive experience that she was not used to, and then she's like, I like her as a character because she like follows the path of like random horniness where she's just like, okay,
I guess this is happening.
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, oh
okay.
goodness, and then she's like, I love it.
But then she just talks it down to being European.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think
I love how she does
She
that.
really does.
No, she always
we're all
says,
doing that.
she says it's very Weimar. That's like her
Yeah.
logic.
Exactly, yeah. It's just
And she's like, oh, I'm a long way from home.
this is just the way people do it.
That's
and
really funny. That's so true. Like, you're right. It's a total projection of like what it is to be European. But it's like, no, you're just horny.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
she justifies everything. Oh my god. And when she like gives sloppy top to the jazz singer.
Yeah,
She's
but
like, oh, it feels so European.
yeah, but I
to
like
suck
it
off a
because
black guy.
I also like it because it's like it always like stages her like it like stretches out the sexual encounter where it like shows the social dynamics that change where you're like, okay, this is happening, and then she's like, oh, no, I don't like this, and then, I don't know, it just
like
slows
it's very nuanced.
Yeah.
Like it does like ease you in. Like,
And that's
not
why
just,
it's
like,
purely eroticism and not porn.
Well, that's why I feel like
True.
it's like 1970s
There's a
porn.
difference.
No,
There's a
that's why I feel like
difference.
it's like 1970s porn films where it's like,
Yeah.
like a slow burn.
There's a setup.
Yeah, but
setup.
that's like also like I feel like I'm so used to reading like millennial auto fiction porn where it's like Chris Kraus or like Miranda July or whatever. It's like really like actually porn, and it like refuses the kind of cringiness and like almost like feminine and like non-theoriness of like erotic writing where it's just like, and then like he was like fucking me against the wall, you know, like that Maggie Nelson, like, he fucked me on concrete. It's like that's cool, and that's like a cool pose, but I kind of like that this book is like, and then she fell back into the pillows.
Yeah.
It's like erotic.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's
When
like,
she wrapped the furs around her.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, well,
it's
I was
about
just-
getting clothed and not
exactly.
taking your clothes off.
Yeah.
It's about being Weimar.
It's about cross-dressing.
Yeah.
And it's about
cross-dressing, which
Weimar.
Frank Moorehouse is also about cross-dressing.
AGP.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's like a, I don't know.
I actually
Tourette's
don't
trait.
think he was AGP. Like, I know that's your you know,
That's my angle.
that's your word of the month. But I just don't really think,
Ouch.
A, it's historically accurate to like Frank Moorehouse, or B, even if it was, like,
No.
I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he was just, like,
It's just a fun way
fetishist
of like
and
being
horny.
transphobic.
And I think
being
also-
openly transphobic.
but I think he was, like, I was interested in, what did you think about this? I don't think you read this up, but, like, in the Moorhouse biography by Matthew Lamb, they talk about, because I guess, like, I think he's kind of interested in, like, why are people sexually inclined the way that they are. And in the book, they talk about him having this, like, actually horrible molestation, sexual encounter when he was, like, 15 or something on a train. He was sexually assaulted by a man and then experienced, like, a lot of shame because it was the 1950s or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Matthew Lamb kind of, I think, implies that, like, the reason why he felt sexually transgressive or, like, othered throughout his life was, like, partly because of that experience.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't read that part. But wasn't there also something at a camp? Like, he went to some kind of... Or am I getting this mixed up? He went to some kind of school camp, like Boy Scout thing.
He did military training.
That's right, yeah.
Which is where he met John. Who... I can't remember his last name.
No, before he meets John, at camp when he's, like, 12... He falls on a stick and has his penis spiked by the stick and gets, like, symbolically castrated, Matthew Lamb says.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's that was, like, a really traumatic experience because it was, like, in his first, like, I don't know, bloom of puberty or whatever, he literally got castrated.
Yeah, it's such a, like, mythological origin story or something.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And, I mean, when I went to the archives, I saw, like, an ultrasound order form for, like, an ultrasound of his penis. So maybe, like,
did they have the results?
Problems persisted.
Did they have the pictures?
No.
The receipts?
Unfortunately, no pics.
No.
Well, it made me feel, it was funny reading the biography, actually, because, like, I don't know, you know when you have someone that's, like, a kind of public figure, you just, like, accept that you know all this, like, private information about their life, like their penis ultrasound, and also, like, he must have had access to his diaries or something because it talks about him, like, struggling with impotence. And struggling when he would be in long relationships with women that he would suddenly just become, like, not interested in it. But then in 4017, like, I love that book because it's always about these, like, I feel like he's always about sexual games. Like, he gets bored by just, like, plain sex and he likes, like, the game or, like, the construction or the, like, narrative. Even if it's, like, an illogical narrative that doesn't, if you tried to explain it, it wouldn't really make sense. But, like, in the sexual encounter, it makes sense.
Totally.
And then... Yeah, I was like, how the fuck does Matthew Lamb know all this stuff? He's like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, when he was with, like, Suzanne, he often struggled. It's like, imagine reading your biography in, like, 100 years, and it's like, when Sally was with John, she often felt like she couldn't get it up. And you're like, how the fuck do you know that?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Totally.
Exposed.
Yeah. Anyway.
Sally, which, by the way, for our listeners, is the resident expert on Frank Moorehouse. He had access to I believe they're called the, like, Moorhouse Papers.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what they're called.
At the University of Queensland.
Yeah.
And they're kind of, like, basically a comprehensive, like, archive of, like, all of his diaries and stuff.
Totally. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and I think there's still more to come because he had only died, like, a year ago or something when I went, and so there's probably more in there now that I can see. Yeah, it was pretty sick. Like, there's dozens of boxes, like cardboard boxes, like this big, full of stuff from, like, when he was a teenager to his old age, basically. And
I love
just, like,
that. Did you have to handle, like, the things with gloves?
No, they don't. It was actually, like, much more laissez-faire than I thought it would be. It was just very Brisbane style. Like,
I love that.
I thought it would be very austere, but it was just, like, you know, a carpeted room, and I was just, like, rummaging around and, like, on myself, so...
Dark academia, but tropical.
Yeah.
In the sweaty room.
And there was a Peter Carey guy there at the same time, a Peter Carey researcher who was, like, looking through the Carey files.
Why are they all in that library?
I don't know. I think Moorhouse had some relationship to that library and to Brisbane as well. I don't really know why, but, like, I met him twice, and both times he was in Brisbane. Like, he was always going to Brisbane for some reason. Not really sure.
You met Frank Morehouse.
Yeah. Twice.
What was he like?
Very, like. Yeah, I don't know. It was brief. Like, so yeah, I met him once when I was 19 at a book signing for Cold Light, I think, which is the third one in this trilogy. I hadn't read that. And my friend and I came and we had, like, copies of his early, like, secondhand copies of his early books and to sign. And he signed my book.
Have you got is the book in the room with us?
No, I would try to find it. I actually don't know where it is.
Which one is it?
It was Tales of Mystery and Romance, which is still my favourite. And he signed it he just wrote the word oracles. And then, like, signed Frank Moorehouse.
That's dope.
Yeah. And then I wrote, like,
That's
I had
so
a,
beautiful.
like, creative writing memoir
the intrigue,
assignment
the mystique.
due. So then I wrote, like, a 1,000-word, like sort of piece about the experience of getting it signed. And then my writing teacher sent it to Moorhouse. And then I met Moorhouse again. And then he emailed me, and we emailed a few times back and forth. And I was like, you know, while I was doing it, I was like,
Were you fangirling the whole
yeah,
time?
I was like trying to play it cool so hard and like freaking out about what I was saying. But yeah, he told me that I wrote very well and had a mean eye.
Yeah, because also you're probably like, this geriatric man of the desk.
He looks like a drag queen in the piece, which he kind of did. Like, he looks like a drag queen out of costume, because he was very, like, he's kind of, like, taut and, like, plump lips and, like, kind of arched brows. And, yeah, there was something, like, a little bit femme about him, even though he was, like,
a little bit
very masculine in other ways. Yeah. And he was just wearing, like, normal rugged old guy clothes and...
He's wearing like board shorts.
No,
he's in the like Queensland costume with an Oscar Wilde ass like complexion.
Yeah, like powdered.
Damn. Would you say that he's a dandy?
I think he's a dandy. Or maybe he's something more Australian than a dandy.
Evil bisexual.
No.
He's not evil. I think he's too...
He was like a rugged
a
man.
Sweet bisexual.
That's why he's like funny, because he's like a bushman and Weimar at the same time.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he's just a unique archetype. I didn't know about him at all until you told me about him, Sally, which is crazy because like he was very objectively successful in Australian literature, and I think he just like fell out of favour.
What is the Miles Franklin Award?
It's the most prestigious Australian award for literature.
Oh. Yeah. Well, it's Australian,
Yeah.
so that's really why I haven't heard it.
It's like the Man Booker, but for Australians.
Wow.
Yeah, like Alexis Wright just won it.
But I'm pretty sure that he actually had a like Broigus about that book being ineligible because it was like too un-Australian, which is really funny. Because it was like, yeah, it didn't represent, I don't know, like the bush or something.
Yeah, it's
enough.
not like my father molested me.
Yeah.
No
What Australian
idiots.
novel are you thinking about? Wait, you guys need to watch that video. It's so funny.
I started like playing that in the middle of like the soft center seminars.
Okay.
And people like the didgeridoo came on.
I'll just explain it to you and then you can watch it in your own time. It's so funny. It's like this like short 13-minute documentary about this really camp gay guy in Brisbane who works at a fashion shop called Fuse, F-U-Z-E, and he has like a phobia of emus, and the documentary is about him going to an emu farm and going through like all the stages of confronting his phobia.
Wow.
It was like
It's
really
funny.
But maybe
He's like a really...
inappropriate for
Well, then I found him on
context.
Instagram and now he's like a scenester, like old...
What?
Okay, I watched the doco with Moishi and I was like, this guy is really charismatic and funny.
He's
and,
so
and
funny.
overcomes his phobia of emus, sort of.
Someone should have put him on a contract.
No,
like-
he ended up being the head designer for Topshop in London. And I was like,
Which
he
is
had,
so on
he had
brand.
talent. Like,
So
you could see it
good.
from in a second.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of global talent that Australian creatives have.
He drifted his way to the top.
Exactly.
It was so funny.
You need to watch the whole thing because it's really funny.
Yeah, he's so like Kath and Kim, but like...
Wait, go back to the archive story, talking of Brisbane. What else did you find in there? What did you not write about that you wish you wrote about?
I could have written about Sunny, the
Yes.
erotic novel, but I just didn't know how to write about that without like writing an entire piece about it. Because, yeah, so it's this erotic novel that he was writing while he was working on Grandes and Dark Palace. It's called Sunny, and it's like a incest forced feminization like boarding school.
Oh my god.
Like full on porn. It's extremely graphic. It's
Is
written
it
a little bit like the
released or
story.
published anywhere?
No, it's not. It's just in the archive as far as I know, and
Right.
probably some other people have it.
For private.
And they wanted to publish it with private backers?
Yeah,
That's
that
cool.
was-
Who
yeah,
are the
like-
private backers, I wonder?
I don't know, but I just read this in the Lumbee biography. Yeah, so there were attempts to publish Sunny by a private consortium of supporters. But at the time of writing it,
The Parisons.
Yeah.
The Parisons.
Totally.
I wonder
That's
what
what it's
people
all
would
for.
say if you publish. But I don't think you actually are allowed to publish like full-on porn on Substack. Even if
I'm
we
not
wanted to
sure.
publish Moorhouse's Sunny. But anyway,
Yeah, Moorhouse
the
described
French would publish it.
Have you seen that video of Carl Stefanovic
No.
like laughing at Grumpy Cat? Like he's in an interview with Grumpy Cat, who's like this internet icon from the 2010s, and Carl Stefanovic just like loses it on like live television
really-
for like a whole
It's
minute.
quite sweet.
What you doing? No, I think I was saying to Sally before, like, because Sally was saying that she found the book maybe more annoying than his other books, which I get.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
I didn't. Well, also, I read it first. I read all 3 of them before I read any of his other books. So I feel like that changed my approach to his other books. And I thought it was like, I think that this type of book is like the hardest type of book to write and the type of book that I admire the most, which is like an epic, not historical, just
researched.
Like one that has like lots of different characters that you really feel like and they like change heaps over the course of the novel. So
totally,
I
like,
love it.
He
like,
kind of has the like social observation to a T, and it's like, I don't know, like, because I feel like he recreates the feminine experience kind of really well for a man, and it's like, how do you know this? Well, women's magazines, but also it's like, I don't know,
it's just like empathetic.
Specific like details. Yeah, like the empathy that he has.
And
cross-dressing. And being trans.
Yeah.
Well, also I feel like every
him.
character, I mean, it's like the most kind of, I don't know, like literary faux pas or whatever to try and like psychologically insert someone's own life experience into the characters, but like you do feel like the characters are like proxies for him in a way, some of them.
They
like
do
Ambrose,
feel like
for example.
different faces.
Yeah, but
Ambrose
then like
is definitely him.
there's like one scene that
So
I
does
like
Edith.
love in one of the later books. I don't think it's in this one, I think it's in the next one, but it's like so stuck with me because I feel like Ambrose is like this character that she first understands as being like this kind of intimidating version of like sophisticated English or European sensibility.
Totally.
And then in the second book, he kind of has a mental breakdown, or maybe it's at the end of this book. And there's this scene where he goes into a committee meeting and he presents this idea about like a hay thing or something. Maybe it's at the end of this one.
I think it's at the end of this book.
Oh, it's like so like it's harrowing to me because he presents.
He's like really like put together, like, you know, sort of like stiff upper lip guy.
Yeah.
Who like lets it loose in the bedroom, but like only in the bedroom. Otherwise, in the committee, he is like the man of the house.
But he like withholds himself and is always like diplomatically cool. And then he makes this proposal for this new like hay implement or something. But it's like the incident just like serves as an illustration of his broader kind of like losing his shit in the world of the League of Nations. And then she like suddenly realizes that everyone thinks that he's kind of just making a silly proposal and that he's like revealed his hand as someone that's like cracking.
Right.
And it's like so harrowing when you read it. I don't know, just because you like have a previous vision of him as a character and then you can see his kind of like disintegration and decline.
Yeah.
And then this like really subtle social humiliation where like no one would say, oh, you just made a bad presentation. But everyone in the room is like, you just fucked that up. And it's not even like a conscious thing where everyone thinks that. It's just like kind of an agreement that like that went badly and that means that he's on the out.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine everyone is like with who's okay, well now I'm going senile, but like who's the current like president of the United States?
Joe Biden.
I'm
one of the greatest guys.
I'm having a Joe Biden moment, indeed.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's the alcohol. Great wine.
When he gets on stage and everyone's like, that was a great idea. Yeah.
But it's kind of beautiful. It's honestly
It is like
he's
that.
like creating like dementia art, like I think.
Yeah. And Ambrose is
That
just
is a
like
genre
that.
in itself. Yeah, no, and like it kind of, do you think it like kind of echoes like Frank Moorehouse's own struggles with like mental health? Like, because he kind of has like a family history.
And he tried to kill himself like twice, I think. As far as I know. Yeah.
All great Australian authors do.
Yeah.
I must not be a very good Australian author.
Well, you just need to try harder.
In what way?
As the RA said to Margaret Thatcher, if at first you don't succeed, you just gotta, we will next time.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, yeah, he obviously was very depressed at different points in his life. But, yeah. But one thing that has struck me about Grandays is how hopeful and naive the tone is, because it's, I guess, mirroring Edith, who's come from...
Who's like this idealist, you know, fresh face, like country girl.
Yeah, fresh off the train.
Wait, where is she from? Is she from...
I think she's from country New South Wales.
Yeah, she's from country.
Which is where Frank is from too.
Yeah, he's from Naarm, which now known as the ice capital of Australia.
Oh, really?
But also apparently the literature capital. I feel like he would have loved the meth scene there.
He would have like loved like pure decadence of chemsex.
Oh my god, did
Definitely.
he have chemsex? Like, he had a lot of drug sex.
I think he had drug
I hope
sex.
that he got to experience Ken sex.
I think he was like a bit more. I don't know. I imagine him as like very sophisticated and into like more the manners rather than the sort of like pure hedonism of like you know bumping and grinding at the sauna.
I never have actually thought of him going to like a gay club or like a full on like.
Yeah, I can't imagine him cruising.
Yeah, what you can or you can't?
I can't.
Oh, I can definitely.
You can imagine him cruising.
I can definitely imagine him cruising. I feel like that man has cruised.
Maybe.
I just don't think, I don't think
straight.
he liked like I don't think he liked like partying and like clubbing. Like he wouldn't have liked club music, and that's why I found like when I was reading Loose Living, it was like he was like out of time. Yeah, because he was like wanting to be in like jazz clubs and having like luncheons.
He was born in a different era.
He was
he was meant for a different decade.
But you know what?
However that figure of speech goes.
What really changed my perception of him, and I always think about, is like I can't remember the woman's name, but she wrote this essay in the Saturday paper or this monthly about the woman who had a long affair with him. What's her name? Like Philippa?
Fiona?
Yeah. Fiona something. She's in that one. But yeah, she was like the woman that he had an affair with, or like this dalliance with, that was the basis of 4017, which is like such a good book. That's like all about, it's like the narrator is 40 and he has a fling with this 17-year-old woman. 17.
Oh, right.
Like he's
May
40,
December.
he's 14, he's 40 and she's 17. And it's all about their like shifting dynamics.
What are your thoughts on the age gap relationship?
Well, I'm into it. Because
what are your thoughts on the age gap relationships
I
in
loved
general?
reading this woman's thing because she was like, yeah, I guess now when you look back at it, you would be like, what the hell? Like, I was 17 and he was 40. But she was like, we had a really good time together. Like, he taught me a lot. I'd still like cherish. She like talks about this gift he gave her that's like a leather traveling set or something like totally weird. And she's like, I treasure that time we had together. Then she's like, I got really sick of him towards the end because he would always buy really expensive alcohol, and like sometimes she was like, yeah, he'd always say like most beautiful champagne, but he used like my scholarship money to buy it. And then also he always would like trap her in like erotic reminiscences. Which is like, yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like
that's just the
I'm pro horny, but then it's like maybe it's too.
Yeah, it's just like the kind of checks and balances on. Like, you can't get but it's like you can't.
It's like, I wouldn't say like, oh, that's pathological. Like, you should, no, like moral, not like a moralistic thing. It's just more just like that's annoying. It's like, why are you being annoyingly horny?
Yeah. Like, it's just
put your dick away. Like,
it's a part of dating an older person. I don't know if I'm talking from experience.
What did you think about the age gap relationships?
I think it's fine, but I like also think that it's so interesting to like enter empathetically into the perspective of the younger person who's in the age gap relationship, as someone like not me but like him who's the older person.
Edith is meant to be what, like
26?
Yeah. And
which
Amber
is like in his 40s.
I'm not sure.
I think younger maybe. I don't think it's 4017. I think it's slightly smaller.
Oh, I always imagine him as like this
Maybe
middle-aged person. That's just fanciful thinking.
Yeah, I think he's meant to be like.
Okay, I'm the fetishist.
You're like, Daddy.
The guy in uniform.
The guy in uniform.
Well, you know what's funny as well though, because
I love the
at the end of 4017. This is like the thing that actually, this is the key thing about Moorhouse as well, is like the Moorhouse extended universe where like all Moorhouse books like all connect to the other ones in really random ways. At the end of 4017, when I read the end of the third Edith trilogy book, this is a spoiler, but do you want me to just tell you what happens at the end? It doesn't.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of pages to get through together.
Yeah.
She dies in Israel. She goes to Israel for a diplomatic mission, and then you don't know if she dies of a heart attack because she's old or because their car's been shot out in warfare.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So it spans her entire life.
Yeah, it spans her entire life. She was just like in her 70s.
Okay, this happened. Yeah, and this happened.
Yes, and then at the end of 4017, it's about this woman Edith goes on this diplomatic mission, and then there's this younger man who's a bureaucrat who's there with her that's like an anti-nuclear guy. Yeah. And there's a scene in what I read first, in which you would read the opposite way around.
Yes.
Which I read first in the Edith trilogy, where she is in this hotel with this man, and then she's like in her 70s, and she's like, does he want to fuck me? And then she gets all ready for him to come. She's like, I don't know. And it's like this really weird thing where she's like, I don't know, like I'm so old, but like, is there something here? And then I read 4017 and it's from the perspective of the man. And he's like, I'm so disturbed. I look into her eyes like, is she trying to fuck me? Like, no. And when I read it in the other one, I was like, oh, maybe he does. Like, why didn't she like take the leap?
So
and then it was really...
crazy. That's so cool that that's mirrored. Like, I remember it slightly differently, like, in 4017, and maybe it's even in another short story, that scene or something. But there's like a flicker where he like sees her like grace and what she would have been like as a young woman, and has like this flicker of desire, and then it like switches back to being like, no, she's like my slightly annoying like
grandma,
80-year-old like hotel neighbor who's been kind of like glomming onto me on this trip that I can't really shake off.
And she's like got really like weird things about proprietary, about like the butter routine in the hotel and stuff. She's like obsessed with like routine and ritual.
Totally.
But that's why in the biography they talk about how like the way he taught himself to write novel, like that kind of novel where he would have all these multiple characters, is that he would write the same story but from every character. Which I was like, that's such a genius like way to write something.
Honestly, like the biography has like served as a huge inspiration.
How to.
But it's like, I don't know. It's like you can't just write autofiction for the rest of your life.
No, and even when you are writing
as much as people want to believe that.
Like, even when you are sort of writing autofiction, which Frank Moorehouse definitely did.
Yeah.
Like, there's something so mannered about it. There's nothing like raw about it at all.
No. Exactly.
It's so like layered.
But it's just so much more interesting when you kind of like are able to, I guess, like wear all of these like different masks and like, you know, kind of like enter into the heads of like how people think. Like just the detail in this is so like vibrant, and I'm like, how does he know? How does he know this?
Well, I think he did go, like he definitely went to Geneva and like got into the League archives and all of that stuff. So he would have like, I felt really actually one emotion I felt while reading this was kind of like fondness and happiness for Moorhouse as an author, that he got to like the way you would about your granddad, like, it's so good you got to go to the RSL. But it's like,
you got to go to the RSL.
I'm so happy you got to go to Geneva and like nerd out about like this esoteric like lore about meetings and bureaucracy, which is like something he loved for his whole life.
I know. At the start of the book, it has the
men pursue their interests.
It has the diagrams. I can't remember if it's at the start or the end.
Can we talk about his titles?
Yes, but can we quickly talk about the diagram quickly? There's like a diagram of the structure,
which is just so like.
Yeah, you need to show that. You need to show that closely while Sally's peeing.
Oh my god! I'm trying not to spill the red wine on my white clothes. It's like...
Okay, in my opinion, when you open a book and it has a long list of characters, a diagram, and like 2 to 5 epigraphs, that's when you know that it's a real novel.
Like Game of Thrones.
It's like Game of Thrones, but just for like horny, like Weimar diplomat people.
I love how like at the end he explains the origins of eugenics. And he's like, no, it wasn't always like this racist thing. It actually like came from... the theories of Florence Nightingale, who, I don't know, like everyone recognises now as a girl boss, but no one's like, Florence Nightingale invented eugenics.
That's why it's also good, because like Edith is like, half the time you're like, oh, you have these really like aspirational approaches of like internationalism and like world peace, and then other times she's like, Esperanto is the future and eugenics is really good, and you're like, no,
you should say your take about how like the decline of Esperanto and jazz is why the West is falling.
But that's why, because like she gets caught up in these movements that were just totally misguided and really incorrect. But that's
there's a lot of idealism like happening in that time. Like people were like, we're not. The League of Nations itself was like born out of all of that idealism. They're like, we're going to learn from World War I, and like we're going to have a chance at international collaboration. And the American character,
which one?
I feel like is like,
babe, you're walking in front of me.
Cameo.
You can come in and have some chips. No, you've done it now. No,
it was just so casual.
We're just dialoguing. Do you want to come in front and have it?
No, it's alright.
You should join the round table.
Now you just like put your like penis like right in front.
Can't help myself.
This is what were we talking about?
No, the titles. Okay, so he has the diagram and he has all the section details of what the like realistic sections are.
Common like So the first title is How Edith Campbell Barry ate 6 courses and practiced the 7 ways in the dining car on the train from Paris to
Can
Geneva.
you read the scatting title? It's so
Oh my
funny.
gosh. If I can find it.
We'll
Yeah,
go through. We'll have the
it's in
list.
the pink.
We'll have the chapter title list at the start. Look.
Oh, here
Yeah.
it is. I've like
Yeah.
bookmarked
It's here as well.
international language, scat singing, its ramifications, magnitude, and consequences. And on that note, I will now get Cam to demonstrate scatting.
No, I can't do it. I did do it in the
Isn't
past.
Scatting
however.
just like it's skibidi.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's just
It's
like,
just skibidi toilet.
no, it's just like no. It's just like
The edging scatting on the spot.
in the chapter she goes to the jazz club and she hears the guy scatting and then she thinks it could be a new universal
never
language
heard
of
it before.
diplomacy.
And she
She
kind
was
of like loses her mind, and her like companions who are there are like, "What are you talking about?"
She's like, the furniture, it's music, I can hear
Yeah.
it.
And she's like wonders whether she needs to like place an emergency call to the league to tell them about scatting, but also the whole time you realise like she's really wasted.
She's
Like
so
she's
drunk.
wasted.
She's just, it's like very Enter the Void. Like,
Yeah.
Really funny.
But okay, all the chapter titles are like that, and then like look at the ones that are the chapter titles for loose living. They're also so good, and just like Grant. I don't know. It's such a particular tone that like I think the reason why I really loved him when I started reading him was I was like, you know, when you read something and you're like, oh, this is like
It's
such
good.
a distinctive tone, but it's like a perfect sensibility that I like
get
share.
it. Like, it
Yeah.
could have like been written in title case, like the entire novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I love how he
It's
puts
very-
stuff in title case often.
He does.
Like, it's like
in
how,
Grandays he
yeah.
does that often.
It's
yeah.
like how Emily Dickinson like capitalizes like random things, and you're like, I know exactly what you mean.
It's very Victorian era, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it like recognizes like
The
the,
way of
artifice of the
outdoors.
fictional world or
Yeah,
whatever.
another couple of chapter titles.
Whipping the yum cha maids. On the disorder of restaurant anxiety. It's so good.
Yeah, I remember
On-
you like
on
posting
five-
the titles in your story, and it was like, I gotta get into the other Moorhouses. Yeah, I just like didn't know about him as a writer because I feel like he's a little like too obscene for the Australian sensibility.
What
which is,
about
like,
this
something
one?
that he raves about?
Like,
A moral fable describing the downfall of a person who has turned his back on Australia.
I'm
yeah.
gagged. Like this shit.
That's why he's so funny because he's like,
Shit got me
he's really
gagged.
un-Australian and he hates
Wow.
Australia,
Yeah.
but then he's like got this like RSL patriotism. That's why it's so
He
funny.
does. Yeah, no, he like raves against sort of like Australian Britishness, and then he's
Yeah.
like,
But he's like,
my
he feels-
country.
yeah. I wonder why he was so out of fashion. Like, I think that kind of novel was out of fashion. Like this kind of novel, like a big
I think the
Middlemarch.
historical novel just like
It's a bit
felt.
dowdy or something.
It is, yeah, a little bit. Like it's a little bit. It does feel like I don't know, like someone's dad could have written.
I find that highly offensive and disagree.
No, but like that's what's so good about it.
I don't
It's-
think so.
It's like when like
do you
someone's
mean
dad
by that?
presents you with like information. Like it's just a very like
That's
Australian dad thing.
That's part of Moorhouse, I think. It's a big part of
Mm.
Moorhouse. Is him like dropping like really boring
Which is,
esoteric facts, but he makes them interesting in the telling.
like it's like entirely like in a redeeming way. Like
Yeah.
the fact that
Okay.
he
Yeah.
is able to like condense all of this information into like also like
Yeah.
a funny situation.
Yeah,
That's
while
true.
I was reading, I was like, some of these chapters where it's like taking you through like what is actually a very boring meeting, but like the reading experience is really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
And
like
it's-
she's literally just like taking minutes for the League of Nations,
Yeah.
but she's like reading all of the like social cues, like she's
Yeah.
reading the room and she's like picking up on vibes.
Yeah, I feel like
And it's
reading
like-
the room, that's like the key
That's
Moorhouse
the key.
approach.
Yeah, no, like
Yeah.
this whole book is just her like reading the room.
Yeah.
Really, and responding, and it's very much like feminine care kind of vibes. Like when
That
she
is so
consoles like
true.
Sir Eric after
Yes, I love
after
that.
like Germany has been
Germany withdraws from the League of
Withdraws. No,
Nations.
No, they've been rejected. They've been blocked from joining the league.
Right, by Brazil.
by Brazil, who might
I love the America hate in this, by the
yeah,
way.
there's so much
Like,
America hate.
didn't he have like a bit in his like IRL life where he, I don't know, like got stood up by a girl, like, who, like, turned to like an American love
Maybe.
instead.
I don't remember that. But he definitely goes to America and then gets really depressed.
Yeah.
And like his like fixation, which, okay, what I haven't seen is the movie adaptation of the Coca-Cola
No, either. I'm
Kid.
sure it's so bad.
It seems bad.
Is that by Moorhouse?
Yeah, he wrote this series of stories about the Coca-Cola Kid that are like short stories about American imperial influence in Australia. And
Wow.
it's all about how like it's like a guy who's a Coca-Cola salesman who represents like perverted
He's
American
definitely
mindset, like
he's definitely like
infiltrating
an
the Australian
anti-Pine
psyche.
Gap guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Like,
Pine
you know,
Gay.
he was like, he's
Yeah,
Pine
he's
Gay,
fully
he's
Pine
so
Gay.
Pine Gay.
He's so
You know,
Pine
he
Gay.
was on that like pork eating, like,
Yeah.
fuck the Yanks kind of tip.
And his book, which I don't know, maybe my joint favourite with Tales, is called The American's Baby. It was his second book. It's a book of short stories, and it's all about American-Australian relationships. Like, and a lot of it's, through this avatar of this American character, who the other characters interact with in particular. The characters are, like, talking about America, or there's, like, a visiting American poet, and they receive the poet, and the poet's really rude to all the Australian poets, like, things like that.
I feel like Americans, out of like all of the people, are like dragged the most in this book.
But
Like,
also, this book, the blurb is clearly like responding to some kind of like Keating era like geopole machinations. It says, as Australia turns to Asia, Moorhouse's heroes permitted one last look at Europe.
Interesting.
It's like,
as a great Australian tradition to be like,
he's like
the good old days, like.
Polly's telling us to learn Indonesian. What can we say of our French lessons? Why did we do that, and why are we doing this?
Yeah, it has that kind of retrograde, like, 70s, like, geopole thing going on or something like that.
I love it. It's like a little capsule. It's a little time capsule. What's the time?
Time for you to probably go and get your international flight.
But I'm jealous of the dolls.
But Camille, you know, actually in Loose Living, his son has been reading Paglia, and he's like,
Really?
oh, as Paglia would say, like, the Dionysian impulse rearing from within. I love Paglia, but also she was so kind of like cheesy sometimes.
Yeah,
She's like,
it's very like entry level, like first year.
It's not entry level, like
theory
it's sick.
degree.
But it, like, how would you apply Paglia to this?
I would say that Edith is like you know how like there's like a cri féminin, like which just means like women's writing in French, and it's like about a specific sort of like attitude or sensibility, and I would say that this is still like very much in the like male brain way of thinking, but it's like trying to empathize with that kind of more fluid and like watery expression. And I think he does it really well. As someone who's like AFAB. That's one thing that I have on the dolls. Is that I'm a biological woman. It's okay, we'll cut that out. Well, what are your takeaways?
I know what you mean. I don't know, I feel like I'm like really resistant to like,
I feel
that's
like
why I was saying like,
I was
no,
like,
I'm like,
do not make me explain. Like, it's
can't-
probably in. I'm not,
it's like a
I won't
compulsion.
elaborate.
you can't just say the, what's it called? The acronym over and over again and then not explain.
It's a dog whistle.
Yeah. But I mean,
it's for my...
okay, what I was thinking about when I was reading it was like, I don't really like when people have like essentialist things like, men can't write women characters because they're always talking about the breast jiggling. But like he do be talking about the breast jiggling.
Yeah. He's literally like her curves.
Yeah. But he does that about every character and the male character as well. And I'm like, I just approach it like he's like a horny fetishist and I just accept it.
Yeah, no, he's like very
novel.
embracing of like people's physicalities and like bodies.
Yeah.
Body yoddies.
And like also like it's like a consumerist modern desire where like the fabric is really important and like the types of alcohol are important. It's like sexuality as like a scene,
the signifiers
and a scenario.
that you sort of like
it's a scenario.
commodity fetishism.
But before we go, because I haven't read Strange Paths, and I actually am just desperate to know because it's not in the Lumbee biography. I'm actually just desperate to know about his like long-term partner, who has been like excised from history except from Strange Paths.
Is this Wendy?
Well, Wendy's not about because she's a woman, but the man, like this guy,
John Burroughs.
Yeah.
Oh right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he appears in it quite a lot.
He appears in it quite a lot, but like so he kind of like has this like fling with one of his like military buddies, but only when they're drunk, and then like the next day they pretend that nothing has happened, and then there's like one scene where he finds out that Wendy, his like girlfriend at the time, is pregnant, and he gets shit-faced, and he like turns like in the middle of like military camp, he like turns a gun on John, and he's like, "Dare me to shoot you," and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so Vampire Weekend."
Yeah, they just it kind of just writes about him as like, I didn't really get a strong sense of who he was as a person because I think the guy was anonymous, but they just had this long recurring sexual relationship
throughout his whole life.
But I like that it just has like, it's kind of like sexual relationships that just like almost like happenstance or something.
Yeah, like they're kind of just peppered in.
Yeah,
totally.
And he includes a lot of like other stuff. It's a great biography, honestly.
Yeah.
Matthew Lamb, like he talks about like the state of Australian culture as well as like sort of like Frank, like he really contextualizes Moorhouse, which I think is a great thing to do.
Yeah, and he really puts him in his like family relationships and how he feels like concerned about what his family's gonna think, and his like breaks with his family, and then like even though he feels like he's like left his family ethos behind, he's still like really shaped by their approach. I don't know.
His dad was an inventor, like
and like a businessman, like a rotary man.
He comes from like a long line of dairy farmers. And he talks about this in the electoral experience, but he's like really big on industry. He's like, down on the south coast, we're producers. We take raw materials from the earth and we turn it into things of value.
But the thing that really struck me from reading it is that he was like,
that's what people think of Wollongong these days, but
it's true. Where he was always like insanely prolific journo because he never really went to uni properly, and he was just a journo. Who was just writing. Writing.
Writing constantly.
He was learning on the job.
Fully.
Which
his gay relationship with that guy's interesting because they like imply that he has all these other like dalliances, but then that he just had this like long connection with this one particular man.
True.
Who kind of. The book is good as well because it kind of talks about him being almost like a sexual hypocrite in his early years and then like becoming more comfortable. But as he becomes more comfortable in his sexuality, he like kind of acknowledges that he's like removing himself from like normal Australian society. And as he does that, he's like also ties in his sexual identity with his like commitment to being like an artist, like capital A artist. Where he's like, I'm going to produce like a great novel. And that means that I'm like ostracizing myself. In a fundamental way.
Totally.
In a way, he's like the opposite to Helen Garner because she's like the ultimate. Like I love both.
Domestic.
But she's domestic. Like she's like a domestic like bourgeois. And like and maternal, like family. Like it's like a story of family. Like you don't really get a sense of like
whereas
family.
he's like a transgressive pervert.
Totally.
Which is great.
Well, self-styled as well, and
we need that in Australia. Right?
We honestly do, and that's literally
because we're prudes.
That's the whole reason. Like when you first learn about Moorhouse, he's such a revelation because you're like, oh, I didn't know we had like a bisexual pervert, like prolific novelist who like cross-dressed.
Yeah, honestly, he's so slept
like,
on. Like, how did we?
He is, and like, you know, even now, where I feel like he's like genuinely transgressive to read because like think about what you read now. Like I don't know,
Australian, right? Yeah, it
is transgressive, and it is. You know, it's funny because like now it's like almost the norm to transgress. I think, but. It's interesting, like, thinking about, okay, for example, like, Ursula's reading of, like, Paul's writing, which is about, like, how Paul's writing is very sexual, and I love Paul's short stories, but they're not, like, horny in a joyful or erotic or blissful, like, chiller way. Like, they're, like, sexy, like, harsh stories.
Or, like...
The vibes are different.
It's
just
cool.
A different, like, sensibility. It's very, like, Berlin, Berghain, like, sex club,
and
whereas this is, like, doilies and... nails
don't
and
think
fingers.
You mean doilies, I think you mean beautifully laid out Geneva table for fine dining.
So true. Fine linens. Fine bohemian lace.
It's like a sensibility that feels kind of lost now. Like, it would have already been retro when he was writing it, but now it's, like, totally arcane. But then the perversion
Is
and the
this
transgression...
60s doing 20s? No.
No, it's
was writing
90s.
It's 90s doing
20s.
20s.
And 2000s as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is, like, set in Art Deco is just so Art Deco. Full stop.
Lana Del Rey would love Frank Moorehouse if she would read him.
Yeah. 2017, like, alligator man team.
Literally, yeah.
Have you seen her alligator boyfriend?
Yes, he's very shriveled, I have to say. But
also
like,
kind
I'm
of
not
sharp.
surprised. Not
Face like a
surprised.
leather mitt.
Yeah.
Truly, face like an alligator, honestly.
Any closing remarks? I do have to rush off to the airport.
My closing remark is that I agree with you that Frank Moorehouse has been slept on and the revival should continue.
If people read it all these days.
I choose to believe that they do.
They're reading The Parasite.
No.
My piece about Frank Moorehouse for the Parasite is one of our least read pieces.
It's one of my favorites.
I'm like,
You know, like,
fools.
we're like slave rovers stuff. Like, I'm like, Sally, this is such a beautiful and powerful piece about one of our literary heroes. It's like, no one gives a shit. Then you write something about, like, fucking Raygun online, and everyone's like, The answer is forget Raygun, Moorhouse.
No, yeah, you need to pepper in a bit of both. Like, you need to educate and acculturate the public.
The closing remark is everyone should just, like, read.
Just read Moorhouse.
Yeah.
What's your closing remark?
My closing remark is that I have to pee. What's your closing remark?
I don't really know. I don't know. I feel like Moorhouse.
Everyone
makes
read
me
Sally's
think of-
piece and also
Yeah, read my
subscribe
piece.
to The Parasite. But
I feel like this conversation in Moorhouse reminds me of Andrew Long Chu in a way or something. Where it's like
so true.
where it's about it's all about desire and like the trickiness of desire. And about like that like kind of an idea of like not giving up on your desire and like pursuing things to the ends or something like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like an anti-essentialist sort of like gender argument.
Exactly, yeah. And I remember I think it's in his biography, like there's this part where I think he's like 31 and he like decides that he's never going to his family Christmas again. and I think that was part of his like, he's like, I'm an artist, I'm like committing to be an artist. And he like he remains like, you know, in contact and like loves his family and sees them all the time, but he's like, he draws the line at Christmas. And I think that's like really iconic and we can all learn from that.
So true. Those family Christmases, you don't need to go
Do
to
we?
them. No.
I'm still wedded to my family Christmas, but that's part of my Perth obligation.
I try to be there when I'm in the country.
Yeah, I wonder what Andrea Longchu would think about Moorhouse.
I think she would love him. I feel like they have a similar sensibility.
Yeah. It's like both like really embracing like the futility and like arbitrariness of like a ambitious like transgressive intellectual life, but then still just like doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
And I feel like it's really interesting, like, sorry, I'm just like continuing to talk about Moorhouse even though you have to go. But yeah, I feel like it's really interesting thinking about who's been taken up by America and Newhausen. Like, so it's like Gerald Murnane and Helen Garner more recently.
Yeah.
It's like, but not Moorhouse. It's like, that's why, you know, why those figures.
But then Angela Carter, who was the one that wrote the Moorhouse review in New York Times, when I tried to
That was in
read...
the 80s.
Yeah, but when I tried to read her,
Angela
I found
Carter
her...
wrote
Yes.
a review.
Yeah.
of
Andrea
Moorhouse.
Carter wrote a full-page glowing review.
Australia
for
mentioned.
2017.
Yes.
Okay, you should go to the Avalon Airport. But yeah, when I tried to read her though, I was like, oh, like this feels so dated to me. Like I just can't get into this.
Yeah, I didn't really.
So it's weird. I don't know. It's weird how things age and like a fine Genevan wine. Like I don't know. It's weird how you find something at a particular time and it seems good and not dated, and then other times you're like,
Okay, I have to pee.